Ready, Linda? At this time, we'll call to order the Board of County Commissioners meeting for the purpose of a committee of the whole. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Allen.
Here.
Commissioner Klicka.
Here.
Commissioner Osterhaus.
Here.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Here.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
And Chairman Eilert.
Here. All are present. Our topic is the furniture term and supply issues. So, Danny, you going to start?
Yes, I'm going to lead off. Thank you for inviting us up here to share with you our furniture program and the term and supply
Could you move the
process.
microphone a little closer?
Okay, here we go.
You can move the mic, bring it to you.
Okay. How's that? Is that better?
Better.
Okay, I'll start over. I'm Danny Livingston with Facilities, the Director of Planning, Design, and Construction. Thank you for inviting us here this morning to share with you the furniture program that we've developed through the years and the term and supply process. And I'm going to hand this over to Roberta Proctor, who's our manager over our furniture and our strategic planning.
Okay.
Good morning. Before we get started, I would like to give credit to Lydia Travis, who was really instrumental in helping us pull this information together that we're going to see here today and share with you. And she's new to the PDC, and we're certainly pleased to have her on board. So thank you, Lydia, for your efforts.
To start out, I don't believe there's any action required as a result of today's presentation. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Any action on the part of the Board of County Commissioners, yeah?
Correct. So a couple months ago, you may remember that we came before you and asked for an extension to our term and supply contracts. And so this is in follow-up. We said we were going to prepare some information, and this is in follow-up to that request. So today's, again, it's just strictly informational, and then we're going to provide a recommendation on how we move forward. Today's program, we're going to actually start really recapping our furniture program. It is very linked to supporting and giving the foundation behind our term and supply. We're going to talk about our asset management piece, and then we're going to get into the actual history of furniture term and supply, the procurement process. We'll talk next steps, and then we're going to close it out. Danny's going to speak briefly on the courthouse furniture acquisition plan. So when we think of furniture in Johnson County with our organization, we tend to really think about workstations and private offices because this is what we're in every day. And the truth of the matter is we have an enormous breadth of furniture that we acquire, and because we have an enormous breadth to our county organization. So this information that's before you really represents that breadth of our furniture. And I put this before you so that as we go through this process, even though I'm going to punctuate some examples and it references more to systems furniture or seating, please bear in mind that really the process applies to all of the furniture that we have. And as you can see here, it's everything from multiple versions of table usage for training and conference rooms, very diverse seating, more than just task seating, seating for jury boxes, shelving for libraries, and even odd and end items like support pieces such as bike racks and trash cans. Believe it or not, that falls in our furniture term and supply. So our furniture program is based on three foundational facets, and the first one is creating performance and establishing quality criteria. Then there's the managing of the assets and then defining that procurement process. Our furniture program criteria, first and foremost, it starts off with the desire for us to receive the most aggressive discounts. And really, we're defining all of this through our service expectations and the quality of the product that we're purchasing. So we start with our aggressive discounts, and then we look at vendor accountability. We want to make sure that the parties that we partner with support not only the providing us the furniture, but that installation in the field and the myriad of processes that have to occur to support that acquisition and put it in place for us. Warranty coverage. We're actually going to hit on this a little bit more in more detail because this is a really, really key piece for us as an organization, and I really want to explain to you how that supports us financially and also from a time-saving standpoint. And then the last couple of bullet points on here, those kind of relate back to the furniture dealership. So this gets into that service expectations, space planning, the specifications of the actual products with us, install drawings and move management. We do so much work in the breadth of a day, let alone a year, that we really rely very heavily on our local vendors to provide these services to keep the projects going and moving very smoothly. And then finally, product education and training. And I cannot tell you how important this is for us. Furniture is not as cut and dry as you would think. It actually is a direct reflection of how you perform in your workplace and actually how you want to develop the culture within your organization. And furniture is constantly changing, how we meet those needs, the type of furniture that provides solutions to those needs. And so we rely very heavily and receive weekly product education and training from all of our vendors, and we really rely on that to stay up to date on those trends. So defining our furniture quality, we've really got it narrowed down to 4 very critical pieces: constructability, durability, life safety, and warranty. Constructability, you're going to see 2 bullet points here: all steel construction and fabrics. This is not the only thing that we're concerned about, but I just want to punctuate a couple of items. When we do think of our tables and our systems furniture, we do want to make sure that the frames are constructed in very durable steel. We've had our product for a very long time. It withstands because of that, the way that they are constructed. The fabrics, I'm going to share with you that there is, believe it or not, a plastic behind, if you will, that emulates sitting and standing on fabric, on chairs, so it can determine when that fabric life is going to run out. How many double rubs, that's what they call that action of sitting and standing. And we look at fabrics that have a minimum of 40,000 double rubs. We have a lot of fabrics that we use in the county that are over 100,000 double rubs. And that speaks to that durability component. All of the furniture that we use, it is commercial grade furniture. It is not residential. There is, believe it or not, a very distinct difference between those 2 types of environments and how furniture has to perform. ANSI, BIFMA are organizations who evaluate those production standards, the components that go into creating furniture, and they really regulate that across the breadth of the furniture organization. And so those are things that are really embedded in all of the products that we purchase. And then when we think of life safety, you know, you can see here that we mentioned NFPA, that's the National Fire Protection Agency. So there's testing on fabrics to determine if they catch on fire, will the fire distinguish, or how long will it take for that to spread, because you want to diminish that impact to your physical environment. But most importantly for us is that National Electrical Code compliancy. You know, all of our systems furniture and even many of our training tables, they all have electrical components, and some of them have data components. And when we connect that to our building, it makes it one with our building. And it is really critical that that furniture is constructed to those NEC guidelines, because our buildings are also constructed to those guidelines. And it allows that furniture to interact appropriately and safely in the workplace. And then warranty. Again, we're gonna talk a little bit more on this here in just a second, but lifetime warranty on non-electric or non-mechanical parts. Generally about a 12-year average warranty is what we see from most of our manufacturers on mechanical parts. This would be the pneumatic device on your chair. It can only take so much of you sitting in it and moving it up and down. But on average, it's about 12 years from our stronger and better built products. And then that cost of labor, is that included or do we pay for that? So we're going to address that a little bit more. But on the manufacturers that we do use during the warranty period, all of the labor for all of the furniture that we have, if something breaks during that warranty period, we don't pay a cent for labor. And that's really important, because from time to time, something will break and it's failure on that product. And we want to make sure that the manufacturer is backing their product and that we're also getting that support from our local vendor.
Roberta, I would point out on the last slide that we look at purchasing furniture for long term. Most of our furniture for capital projects are purchased through bond dollars, and we feel like we have a responsibility to make sure that furniture withstands the duration of that time.
So here we have a furniture analysis, and I've got 2 scenarios, but I want to start off by kind of punctuating the statement that I have at the top, that the manufacturers offer warranties that are based on the tested period of performance. I want to say that again, because it's really, really critical to understand that that the warranty is based on the tested period of performance. So when I talk about that butt rub test, all of the other types of testing that go on in the marketplace, they determine how long that product is going to sustain and perform at that level. And as you well know, there's bean counters out there that go back and they analyze that and they say, we look at our quality and we look at how much we stand by our product. And at that point, we know when there's going to be failure, and we want to build product that lasts for a long time. And that's critical for us, and we are going to definitely punctuate how that has come to play for us and supported us as an organization. But I went ahead and I wanted to take an example of that. And for this example, I am going to reference some task seating. So our facilities department has gone through some very tedious efforts to assess the myriad of task chairs that are out there, the qualities, the constructability, and the features that they offer. And we have chairs that our standard use is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that warranty is for 12 years. After 12 years, they expect that there might be some performance issues. That really comes out to almost 105,000 hours of use. Now, I know what you're thinking. We do not sit in our chairs 24 hours a day. I'm sure there's some days we feel like we are. But what that really means is that that warranty, that life of that chair, I should say, that life of that chair extends well beyond the 12 years. But as we look at some of our more non-standard or chairs that we really don't necessarily recommend, and I would remind you that right now in the county, despite our best efforts and our interest to have these standards, all of our departments and agencies are at will to purchase whatever they want. And we do have many departments and many agencies that purchase chairs that are not within our standards. And when I did this comparative analysis, I made sure to pick a chair that was like in kind in terms of features so that it was a fair analysis. And the non-standard chair that I selected had 8-hour use, 3 days a week. That's kind of a standard. And it has a 5-year warranty. So as you look at that, that's a little over 10,000 hours of use. I looked at the same analysis for our systems furniture, and all of our systems furniture product that we have actually has a lifetime warranty. So we're talking about our panels, not necessarily the fabric, because fabric does deteriorate over time, or a lengthy amount of time, but the constructability of our panels and our laminate surfaces, and they back that for a lifetime. And when you look at that 24-hour use, 7 days a week, that comes out to just under 2 million hours worth of use. Again, we're not using our desks that much every day, but what that does translate to is a longer period of life for use. But when we look at some of our more non-standard type systems furniture product, and I will tell you that the product it'll look just exactly like what we have, but when you start to look at those warranties and you looked at that constructability, they only offer an 8-hour a day use, 5 days a week, 12-year warranty, and that comes out to just shy of 25,000 hours. When I did this example, and I plugged in for the lifetime, there's no way for me to calculate what a lifetime means, right? So I plugged it in at 30 years. So what you're really looking at is 30 years of use versus 12, and 30 is pretty applicable because the systems furniture that we have in this building is over 20 years. Actually, I think it's beyond 21 years of use.
It's 27.
27. So we're pushing 30. So I felt like that was a fair representation of time because we're still using the exact product today that we purchased 27 years ago, and we've not changed any component. And something that really kind of drives this point home, in particular with the task chair, you see there's a little photo here of a chair, and this actually is in this building, it's in Sunset, it's in many of our buildings throughout, and it's actually in the conference room just behind where you're seating.
It's the ones we're sitting in.
Oh, and yes, and it's the ones that we're sitting in, that we're sitting in right here, right now, pardon me. We purchased these chairs 21 years ago, and the chair that you see pictured there actually is in our office, in our conference room. It is the exact chair, it is the exact fabric. So even though that had a 12-year warranty, we're still using the exact same chair. And of note and credit to the vendors that we do business with, we have had some of the pneumatic devices break on there, and they have been good enough to cover the cost of that pneumatic device so that we didn't pay for that, and it was labor that we were able to do in-house. So that really helped to diminish our costs. But I want to bring this point forward just a little bit further and talk to you about how that warranty really translates into cost savings and what that means for us. And again, I punctuate that period of tested performance because that's really what this is based on. So our top of our chart, it just kind of reasserts what we outlined in the prior slide with the use and the time frame. And then as we go into the cost of ownership, we have these same two chairs. So we have the county standard, and at the first year we purchased that, we're looking at $744 spend. Comparatively, our non-county standard, again, similar features and design style, about $450. At blush pass, it always sounds better that we would be saving that money up front with that initial lesser priced chair. But if we think to the warranty, and I can tell you firsthand, we have a myriad of examples throughout the county with individuals who selected chairs that were not our county standard, and they have broken, after the 5-year time frame, and we actually have a lot of folks that are sitting in chairs that have just a 1-year warranty, and that's it. After 1 year, you're kind of out of luck on getting parts and pieces. So if we keep that in mind with respect to that warranty period of performance, by year 5 with the warranty on the non-county standard, if we did have a warranty issue, we're looking at a minimum of $150 for a service visit and the repair, that's just strictly the labor, and then we're looking at the cost of the part. And I would say most parts that would break on a chair would put you in about the $150 category, so you're at $300. So now you're starting to evaluate, do I spend $300 on a chair that only cost me $450, or do I just go out and buy another chair? Well, if in year 5 you do that and you replace it with the exact same chair, you're now paying a rate of escalation. However, you're only going back with that exact same chair. So come year 5, which will take us to actually year 10, you're now really facing that same scenario. Your warranty is up, and if a part breaks, you have to pay for the labor and that part. Meanwhile, that county standard chair, it's still got 2 more years to go on its warranty. So when you look at that total cost of ownership, our initial purchase in year 1 for a county standard chair is $744. But when you start looking at a non-county standard chair, you're looking at over $1,500 of investment. The county has just shy of 4,000 employees, so I took 3,800, and I multiplied that by the difference in those 2 purchases. And in doing so, that would be an additional $3 million that we would spend in ineffective seating for our organization. And I know that all of you know, as well as we do in facilities, that there are a great many ways to spend that money on different programs and different needs for our population. And we take that very seriously when we do look at the furniture that we buy. Where do the dollars go, and where do they go in the long term? So this brings us to our asset management piece. Why do we have inventory? I will tell you that when I get calls from departments, and I get them daily, that's not the question they ask. They say this to me: I've got somebody starting tomorrow, please tell me you've got this, I need it right away. And I can always say, let me take a look, and generally the answer is always yes. But the reason why we have inventory is not because we went out and we purchased a bunch of product brand new and we stuck it on a shelf. It is strictly related to the change that our environment constantly has. And all businesses and all organizations have constant change. We see it in our staff. We have reductions or additions. We see it in our county services. In the last year, I've had 2 different departments come to me where the way that their services interacted with the public reduced the amount of flow of individuals at their space, and I had another one where it increased the amount of people coming to their space. And because of that, they come back to us and say, we need to alter our environment, our furniture, to support how we're conducting that business. And every time, without fail, we are always able to go back and pull parts and pieces that are needed to support that from our inventory. And what makes that successful for us is that we manage that information, because there is a fair amount of product that is out there. So it is very organized. And as you look at the photos that are before you, you'll see on the bottom one, we actually have some chairs in that photo. Those are actually getting earmarked for repurpose, and they've already been sent out to the party that needs them. And then above, you'll see tagging and very well laid out panels on the racks. And then the photo there also shows some shrink-wrapped items, and that is for planned reuse, and it supports the appraisers when they have their initiatives at Sunset every year. So in consort with us keeping it organized on the shelf, we have an electronic form where we track all of the product that goes in and all of the product that goes out. And much to the credit, again, of our vendors and the dealerships that we work with, they support this, and so every time that they're involved in a job, they actually track all of that product and they give us the list so that we can update it ourselves. So we really work in tandem with them to make sure that that is accurate capture of what we have. So how does having this product really come down to saving us some money? Because it does. You may all remember in 2017 that we were going to offload the Centennial Building. It was part of an initiative to help support the new courthouse, and in doing so, we had to move 3 different departments. And one of those departments was in Justice Annex, who had to relocate back to the existing courthouse. And all 3 of those departments had their furniture, and all of that furniture was able to be repurposed because we take very good care of it and it's very durable. So for the folks that moved from Justice Annex into the courthouse, we pulled their product. It was able to meet the space demands because the space and the layout of the space changed. And the cost for that reconfigure was strictly labor, and it was just a little over $2,300. But if we had to go out and buy that furniture new, we would have spent over $34,000. So when you think of saving $3,200, that's a coup for us, that we're being mindful of how our furniture can work for us. But there's another aspect to this that was really critical. This project had an incredibly tight time frame. We had to execute getting a building completely vacated and relocate 3 departments, and we had to do it in 2 months. And if we would have had to have purchased that furniture, it would have added 6 to 8 weeks to that time frame. There's no way we could have pulled off meeting that 2-month deliverable, because it would have taken us out to almost 4 months. So that's another component to why we really keep the furniture that we have, and we maintain it as well as we do, and our maintenance staff is excellent at supporting this as well. So in the last 10 years, Facilities has reallocated systems furniture for over 10 capital projects, and that includes 6 brand new buildings. We do reuse even in our new buildings. Arts and Heritage, and I'm going to point this out here. On this slide, we have 2 slides. I'm not going to walk you through all of these, just a few bullet points. But the photo on the top left is Arts and Heritage, and that systems furniture was originally purchased in 1996. And it had a very illustrious life here at the county before it finally landed at Arts and Heritage in 2017. When we purchased that originally in 1997, each individual workstation cost $1,800. And when you amortize that cost out over the life of it, it means that we paid $86 to date per year for the individual workstations. That's just a remarkable dollar amount. And that dollar amount continues to go down because that product continues to serve. We've installed it, it's working beautifully. So that kind of speaks to our warranty and our longevity, but I want to point out the photo to the right, which shows our Sunset building. This is going to speak to our warranty piece. We purchased that product in 2006, and when we did, we selected this fabric. It was spectacular fabric. We were excited, and it was made of corn. And unfortunately, the corn started to disintegrate and fail. And we contacted the local vendor, and they worked in consort with the manufacturer. And at present, for 4 years, so we're in year 3, every quarter, there are a team of individuals who go out to Sunset Building. They walk the entire building, and they look at every single panel. And they have a map of all of these panels as well. And they find ones where the fabric is starting to deteriorate, and they replace it with a new fabric panel. Mind you, it is not corn-based. It looks like the fabric that we have out there, but not made of corn. And the labor, the panel fabrics, and the effort is all on the cost covered by the manufacturer. And our local vendor supports that initiative. That's who's the labor that's going out to support that. And that's really key, again, to going back to why we really scrutinize the warranties and the quality of the product that we bring, because had we had a lesser product in there with this problem, we would be replacing a plethora of panel fabric. And we would have to, because it was truly ripping apart. On this slide, I just want to point out one of these photos, and it's the photo on the left. You'll see some kind of funky and exciting looking lounge seating in there. We had originally purchased that for northeast office, and it was purchased in 2013. And it's kind of in that long promenade hallway when you walk in. And the way that that hallway kind of interacts with the public and how we wanted to redirect people, we needed to pull some of that out. Well, in 2018, when we pulled that out, we got a call from the folks at Youth and Family, and they said, you know what, we are really in desperate need of some furniture that will really speak to our youth and will create a more casual environment to foster better conversations between them and our staff. And we said, well, you know what, you're in luck because we got some great furniture that just came up, so at no cost to you guys, we can have our internal staff bring it over and install it, and we did, and it has gotten really good feedback. The youth that are there love it, and so do the staff, and it's really fostered more casual and open dialogue, supporting that program even further. So that just really punctuates even more how much consideration we give to the products that we select, that they cover the breadth and diversity of our workplace, because we have so many different environments, right? We have got office buildings, we have medical or mental health facilities, our health and human services, and all of those have very diverse needs, not just for our employees, but most especially how we interact with our clients. And we want to make sure that we're addressing those needs across the breadth of the county and for all users. So with all of that lengthy information, this finally brings us to why we are here, the Furniture Term and Supply. So I want to give you a little history about our term and supply. I know not all of you have been here for this. Prior to 1991, the acquisition of furniture...
Do you have a question?
Oh.
No, I'll wait, go ahead and finish this, and then I'll shoot in.
Okay. Prior to 1991, our furniture was acquired at will. There was absolutely no guidelines in place. Any agency could buy whatever they wanted. Any department could buy whatever they wanted. So there was no holistic intent. So all of the things that I've discussed with you about managing space, managing our standards, managing our assets, managing our costs, none of that was on the board. And so we had a lot of furniture that, because budgets were tight, they bought lesser constructed furniture, and so over time there was more expenses put forth than what was really necessary. So in 1991, we actually established space standards. Facilities did a really great job. I wish I could take credit. I was not here. But they established a furniture specification and a methodology on how furniture would be selected and what that criteria was. And in 1991, there were two really large projects, the admin the admin building, which was being built fresh new, and northeast offices. And so we did furniture bids for the first time, and it complied with those standards that we put in place. And then, lo and behold, in 1995, well, GSA crossed paths with us, and we were very excited. And I have personal experience having worked with the Department of Defense using GSA contracts. They are spectacular. So they're much like our term and supply, and they afforded us the ability to get really, really deep discounting. And then shortly thereafter, the state came back and said, well, we have a state statute that now states you cannot tap into GSA. So that kind of cut us off, and we thought, no, this is not good. If GSA can do it, if the state can do it, we can do it. So in 1997, term and supply was born. And we established that, and immediately on the heels of that, it supported 8 major capital projects.
Yes, and what we were able to do, we had negotiated tiers in the term and supply contract at the time. So I was able to take in 3 different building purchases and put them all on one purchase order, negotiate that tiered discounting, and we saved $60,000.
So by 2004, we had the Sunset Building was coming into play, and our contracts had been in play for a while. Our term and supply had been in use for a while, and we've really felt it prudent to bring in a third party to really evaluate, okay, what furniture do we have, and what really are the perceptions of the quality of that and the use of that, and to look at our term and supply pricing contracts. And so it was very successful. We ended up installing Herman Miller Furniture, and as you can see, they're backing that product in the field to this day. By 2013, our term and supply had been active for 16 years. So 2013 was a year where we went out for bid solicitation, and that bid solicitation lasts for 5 years. But by 2013, we had supported 17 new or renovated projects within the county. So it really was an enormous leap from our days of kind of ad hoc furniture purchasing to having this more streamlined process and the ability to manage it and have that product at the availability of all of our users throughout the county. And that brings us to 2018. So we're here today to talk about our next solicitation and a little bit more about furniture term and supply.
Yes. Commissioner Clicker.
Roberta and Danny, you two continue to amaze me. And I say that very positively because when I initially brought up some of the questions here, you know, I didn't have an understanding of how the process works and what's going on. And you've just educated me and probably others that you're probably more concerned about this than we are. And in the process that you've established and the repurposing of furniture and the moving it around and so forth, you definitely have the interest of the county, the taxpayers, and ultimately the checkbook in mind as you do this. Well, at the same time, you are trying to work with your customers, the various departments, and so forth. I have no problem with what you're doing and how it's going, and I applaud you greatly for it. The only thing up to this point that I always bring the question is the wish, the want, and that, you know, we all have wishes. We'd like to have this, that, and so forth, and we would want this and so forth. Just ensuring that there is a system, that the system takes that into consideration.
Yes.
And ultimately, as we're spending money down the line, that we're keeping the taxpayers in mind. I think this kind of brings up the whole reason we're kind of dealing with this is we're going into two major buildings here. We're going to have, what, a 7-story building that's going to require a lot of furniture, but yet we have a building across the street that's full of furniture. And knowing that we're just not wasting and throwing furniture away and then moving into a new building, brand new. And the way you have this set up, I don't even know why I worried about it. So thank you. As far as what's going on, and you're talking about the procurement process, I know you're following the normal processes that are established and going through that. So from my concern, and I know I was one of them who brought this up, thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I would just add a side note. You know, I've built my career to specifically come into facilities management. I've worked on the architecture side. I was director of design. I specifically leaped into the furniture marketplace. I worked for 2 dealerships in town so I could learn the nuances. I've scheduled 180 truckloads personally of furniture to deliver for one project. You name it, every aspect of furniture specification I did, and I learned it so that I could come to an organization like Johnson County, and I intentionally wanted to come here so that I could help us manage our space and provide an environment that met the needs of us as an organization. How do we attract and retain talent? How do we keep our space agile? How do we meet the needs of the general public? And that's something I'm incredibly passionate about, so thank you for your
Congratulations on it.
Please continue.
Thank you. So in terms of our term and supply, we have 20 local contract vendors. So that's contract furniture for the commercial marketplace. Residential would not fall into this. And they are located in the metropolitan area. And so in 2013, when we did our last bid solicitation, we had 56 furniture product lines. And I will tell you, there's just a ton of furniture out there. But we tried to give thought to what we needed. Again, if you think back to that slide with all of the furniture on there, henceforth the 56 product lines that we had. And so we put our solicitation out. There were 14 dealerships who submitted bids. All 14 of them were awarded contracts. But of note, what they were awarded was based on whoever submitted the most aggressive discounting. And it's really key to understand that the discounting, because I know this is what's in question, is based on economies of scale. So when we've been at this for a very long time by 2013, right? The vendors who work with us, they know our past buying history. They know of the products that are coming forward. And in reality, it is not our local vendors who, for the lion's share of the product, set the discounts. When we think in particular of systems furniture, that is driven by the manufacturer. And most of the manufacturing discounts that we have are actually the state contracts. That's what we're getting. And one of our state contracts actually mirrors GSA. And GSA has a guideline that says no one will receive a greater discount than us. And if you do that as an organization, you no longer have a business. The federal government lays down the law. You can get that discount up to what they get, but you will never get greater. And right now, we have 4 dealerships who are acknowledging that level of pricing for us. When you get into some of the a little bit smaller product lines like lounge seating, those prices don't tend to be as super aggressive because, well, how many people are going out and buying, 500 sofas in one setting? That maybe Vegas would have that. We would not. So those discounts aren't as aggressive. But when we start to look at those procurement methods, because I know that's of interest, what is available to us? Can we purchase product? So there's term and supply, cooperative contracts, those are the state contracts, and then we have the individual bid process. So I'm going to kind of punctuate just a few things on this. We're going to move on to the next slide. But when you look at cooperative contracts, those state contracts, as aggressive as they are, and they definitely are, obviously we're getting really great pricing from them, they are very limited in scope. They actually don't cover the breadth of furniture that we need to support our organization. It's really cubes and task chairs, by and large. So you really don't get the variety of product on those contracts. And conversely, we aren't at the table for negotiating that. So those contracts are really just strictly with the manufacturer. They don't address the local vendors. So you can't really define what those terms of service are going to be because that's done at the state level. So that's something we really want to have back in our court. We want to have more control over that. We want to be able to define those services. When you look at the individual bid process, and I'll tell you, I've done individual bids. I've done a lot of them in my career. They're really, really great if you're buying a lot of product. But if you're just going to go buy one task chair, which we do get that frequently, almost weekly, there's not that economy of scale in that discount, right? I mean, if somebody came to any one of you and wanted to buy a widget that you produced, you're probably not going to sell it for really super cheap for one, but if they wanted to buy 10,000 of them, you would. So the cost savings in the individual bid process is really dependent on how much you're going to be purchasing. And in consort with that is that negotiable services and products, right? If you're only buying one, nobody's going to throw in free labor for one chair, but they may throw in a highly discounted rate of labor if you're going to buy, 150 chairs. The other downside to the bid process is something I'm going to punctuate here on our next slide, and that's staff and time efficiencies. So as we look at this chart, you're going to see that red section, and it's got an 11. That's 11 weeks. And this example really highlights a furniture purchase of $50,000 list price of furniture. At $50,000, we do have to go through this formal bid process. And if we do that, then we have to prepare a lot of documentation, and it takes us 11 weeks to go through that process. And that's writing those bids, because at $50,000, you're buying a diverse amount of product. You have to get those bids out on the street for at least 2 weeks and give bidders time to respond. Then the evaluation of those bids, and then contacting those parties to let them know who was the successful bidder. If we take that and that list price of product that we purchased goes to $100,000, we now tack an additional 3 weeks on because now we're back before all of you to discuss that purchase. If we think back to that Centennial project, if we were looking at buying new furniture, and you think of that additional 6 to 8 weeks for the purchase time, and then we had to go through this bid process, that would have been upwards of 14 weeks. Well, now we're looking at, 6 to 8 months for a project. So time is really of the essence, and what Term and Supply helps us be is more agile in our response time to our needs in-house. If somebody comes to me and says, let's do a reconfigure, Justice Annex was a premier example of that. We had the product, we didn't have to go through the bid process, and we could respond to that overall project. And it's just very critical to understand that if we don't have term and supply in place, yes, this could be applicable to purchases at the $50,000 and above, but this does not address our daily purchase needs, and we do have that. We do have the one-off task chair purchases or a specialty conference table that is needed. We would be having to bid that out, and we really wouldn't be getting aggressive pricing because the term and supply affords us that economy of scale discount. So really, whether you're purchasing one chair or we're purchasing 100 chairs, we're going to get that chair at 60% off. That's a really good discount. If you think of our systems furniture, right now our systems furniture is at about 68 to 72% off. That's an incredible discount to be getting off on furniture. So really the benefits of our term and supply is, again, that it helps us to reduce that time of how we respond to our client needs. It ensures that consistency of discount, because with the bidding process, it's only for that one-time purchase. If I have to go back and buy again, I have to bid again. Whereas term and supply, that discount carries through for the life. Of note on our term and supply contracts, our major manufacturers have a threshold, a dollar threshold, a list dollar threshold, that if our buying goes beyond that dollar, like say $100,000 or $200,000, that we can then negotiate. So we do have a contract where we get 72% off, and if we reach $100,000, we can negotiate that discount. And I know for a fact, because of being on that side of the line, that we could easily get that to 75 or more. So we do have the leverage within our term and supply to negotiate with the contracts that we have in place for deeper discounts on larger purchases, and that's an asset to us. And truly, having served on the other side of the line with furniture, I've seen that come to play and benefit an organization in a very large capacity. So again, that's a significant asset to having term and supply. And then again, we can define that level of quality and that service that we get, because really none of this would be prudent if we didn't have product that's sustained for a long period of time. And then that we have the ability to support our asset management. We have product that feeds into the asset management program, but that we have vendors and suppliers that also help us to support that program. So our next steps. In this month, we would like to prepare a term and supply information for bid scope. And in September, we would very much like to publish that IFB. And then in November, come back before all of you for approval with the extension of that term and supply contract. And in 2019, we would like to have the evaluation of the Courthouse furniture acquisition plan presented to you at that time. And Danny Livingston's going to speak to that, and then we'll be open for questions.
So we've been working diligently on our new courthouse. We're in the middle of design. We will be coming forward to the board in September with a committee of the whole to present our update. We, at this time, are focused on the design and construction of the building and have not started on the interiors yet. We anticipate in 2020 to start furniture acquisition. In 2019, however, we will be looking at opportunities to figure out what Commissioner Clickham mentioned, what items can be reused in the existing courthouse, how we manage assets going forward, and develop standards for the new courthouse that can be reallocated in the future. We anticipate we would like to hire a third-party consultant to help us with the evaluation, specification, and negotiations for the furniture that we plan to purchase for the new courthouse, similar to what we did with the Sunset Office Building. And at that point in time, come back to the Board of County Commissioners and request a temporary increase in the term and supply for the acquisition of the courthouse furniture.
So we stand for questions.
A little off the subject of the courthouse, the medical examiner's office will be coming up here in another year or two. Now, that may take more specialized equipment rather than traditional equipment. What's the thought process there?
The furniture will be purchased through term and supply. Some of the equipment will be purchased through the contractor. Other equipment will be specialized equipment and that may be going out for bids specifically for that specialized equipment and being brought back to the Board of County Commissioners. Right. I'm not that involved with that yet, but that's typically how we would manage a project like that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. Great information. And so are there other questions? Mr. Osterhaus.
Can we go back to slide 7 and 8? And this is maybe directed more towards Penny. Should we be establishing a standard policy for the purchase of chairs, in the sense that, there's some very clear data here on, how, the cost of ownership is much better when you're using the 12-year warranty and the double dip, is that what it is? Double sit, whatever that stand, sit method. Double rub, thank you, that's what I was looking for.
Name of a band.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's another band name, yeah. Should we be coming up with a policy that requires our departments to be using that county standard versus the non-standard? Because it looks like from a cost perspective.
Actually, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
And Joe, some of this, when you looked at the time frame and when we started, Roberta had mentioned the standards that happened back in, I think it was early 90s. And I looked at Joe. He was the one that established that. So I'm going to turn this over to Joe and let him share his thoughts with you.
Thank you. Commissioner, in response to your question, essentially, when we put these in place through the term and supply agreements, the expectation upon the organization is that we will purchase products of any nature that are established by this organization on term of supply. They will be purchased through that term of supply contract, not one-offs or someone going out and buying, in this case, a chair or a computer outside of that term of supply contract. There are exceptions occasionally that are needed, of course, but that's the expectation in the organization.
Okay, thank you.
Jim?
Actually, Jason asked the same question I was. I just have a general comment. It was a very impressive presentation. It's clear you both have the best interest of the county in mind. I like the break-even analysis. You do pay for quality, and if these chairs have been here for 20-some years, they still look great. So, and the manufacturers, the major ones you're dealing with, those are quality manufacturers, and it gets back to what you pay for and the amount of furniture this organization buys. I feel a lot better after this presentation of your repurposing and understanding fabrics and everything else. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Let me ask you this question, and it's always present in our thoughts about term and supply, where you might have a major manufacturer who's able to offer the kind of discounts that you've indicated, yet there may be local vendors who are interested and who want to participate. Maybe they can't offer the kind of discounts that a national manufacturer. How do we balance that?
Well, I think if we're just thinking strictly of discounts, we as an organization need to also consider that component of the warranty and that durability. Personally, I look at how we solution a problem. And if it means that we do have to pay a little bit more money, I'm fine with that, but I have to know that that is an investment, not just a spend. There's a big difference. And I don't want to see our organization spending money on something to just spend money. It has to be product that will sustain for a long time, and I need to have in writing from the manufacturer and from that vendor that they will stand by that product. I get that now. And we have a lot of product that is long beyond its warranty. The systems furniture that is here, we've had it for 30 years. Not that it's beyond its warranty, but when you're pushing 30 years, quite honestly, most organizations don't keep systems furniture that long. They do replace it. And our vendor has been good to continuously support our needs, and we don't pay for a lot of that warranty. So how do we evaluate that? We would need to see what's being brought to the table and how does that support our organization.
Okay, let me ask it in a little different way. The current term and supply contract, there are how many vendors involved in that? Was there 15 or 16?
14.
14
and then 56
vendors.
product lines.
Do we anticipate going forward, if we, go out for a new term and supply, that we'll have similar numbers of vendors who have an opportunity to participate? I'll put it that way.
Yeah, it's a completely open forum. I mean, there are 20 viable vendors, local vendors in the area that can respond. It just turns out that we had 14, and again, all 14 did on some level get awarded product. So yes, I would expect we don't pick and choose. It's open bidding.
And I would like to add to that, the 2013 term of supply that we went forward with had 52 lines of furniture that we anticipated looking at and or maintaining our asset management program. What we anticipate when we go out for the next term of supply is to increase that significantly because we don't know what we're going to be purchasing for the courthouse. We want to be able to have a broad breadth of selection. So there are only 20 commercial vendors, dealerships in the city. I believe when we increase that amount, the number of lines that we are interested in, that everyone should be able to have an opportunity to respond to the term and supply. And I would imagine most of them, if not all of them, would be on our term and supply, in one form or another. I do want to make a comment that we really try very hard in facilities to spread the business. We work, let me back up. We look at our criteria, we look at our standards, we pay attention to how it's going to fit within the county asset management program. And however, taking all that into note, we still are trying very, very diligently to work with the multiple vendors that we have on our term and supply.
Good. Well, I hope that would continue.
Yes.
You know, just having the opportunity to participate certainly is important. Yeah. Okay. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. Couple of questions. When we go for this term of supply, when we go out, we're going to say that we want a chair like that chair, but other suppliers can substitute in a chair that's very similar to that and with specified information, the warranty, how that all works as an alternate. Is that accurate?
I'm going to answer that one. Our term and supply, when we go out for term and supply, we're talking about different lines that we're interested in. We ask for Knoll, Herman Miller, Hahn, Coalesce. There's a whole number of lines that we're requesting. We never get down into the specifics of what those items are within those lines. So we try to keep it as broad brush as possible for our vendors to respond with best discounts as possible.
Okay, so if you specify a steel case chair or a Hahn cabinet of whatever, some scenario, is there more than one dealer in town that can supply it? When we specify a steel case chair, and I'm picking that name, that's one of the names I saw go by, but any of the names. It is my understanding that there are certain dealers that have a lock on a product. If we specify that product,
Go ahead and answer that.
are we then only locked into buying from that dealer, or is there an alternate?
So the way the furniture universe works is there's proprietary, semi-proprietary, and non-proprietary. The breadth of what we have out on our term and supply, it covers all of those categories. So the proprietary product, that actually is regulated at the manufacturer level. So it's the Hahn, or pardon me, actually it's not necessarily Hahn. It's Knoll, Hayworth, Steelcase, Herman Miller. And the manufacturer drives the dealerships based on the region because they don't want to see competing dealerships getting business and losing business, right? So they base it on the breadth of the population in the area. It turns out in Kansas City, we're just not big enough to have more than one proprietary dealership for those respective lines. If you get to the New York market, they have multiple, but they're very spread out. When you get into the semi-proprietary and the non-proprietary lines, that starts to change the picture. Semi-proprietary means the manufacturer is going to align with certain dealerships to provide that product, and they're going to back that dealership for that product. So Hahn's a great example, actually, because they have two different product lines that fall. One that is kind of semi-proprietary and one that is non-proprietary. So their semi-proprietary line, there are multiple individuals in town who we can purchase that product from. And really that discount, they're getting their discounting from their manufacturer. Now they still are at some level of liberty to determine what discount they're going to extend to us. Unlike with the proprietary product, that's not the case. But Hahn also has lines of furniture that's completely non-proprietary. You can get it anywhere. You can get it on Amazon.com, eBay, wherever you want to buy it. So again, this is not product we would want to venture into because it's not really deemed for broad commercial use to the degree that we use it. I think it's great for like a smaller business owner. But you know, with that product, then it is open. So there's really tiers of product and how it is represented. So yes, to your point, we do have some limitations on some of the product, but of the 56 product lines that we present on the term and supply, 52 of them are semi or non-proprietary. And I will tell you that when I reviewed back through the bids that were submitted in 2013, we have some dealers who just strictly submitted for one product line, their proprietary line. They were not greedy, they didn't go beyond that. We have others who, you know, they were great. They submitted discounting on everything that they could possibly provide discounting for. So it really is a fair platform because we're not isolating a specific product and we're not saying, hey, we're only going to go to you for that one chair. We're going to each of our vendors and we're saying, we want the breadth of the product that falls from this manufacturer and what's the best that you can do for us. And then, you know, obviously they have to look at the fact that they have competition in the field that they're bidding against as well at that point.
So of the FF&E dollars, for instance, on the new courthouse, what would you estimate the percentage of the total dollars that will be in a locked-in category, a proprietary lockdown of the total dollars we're going to spend?
I don't know if I can answer that associated with dollars. I might answer that associated with proprietary. Systems furniture would be proprietary because of the experience and knowledge that we have related to systems furniture. Beyond that, trying to think what else do we have that's typically proprietary that we buy. I think then it would be open as to whatever we would specify and whatever's recommended associated with the third party that we would have be brought in to help assist in the process.
It seems like there would be a lot, just cubes, cube worlds, setups,
Yes.
offices. Seems like there'd be a lot in that lane as a percentage. I would appreciate somebody helping me understand more about that. We can do it another time, but I would appreciate understanding more about the percentage we're anticipating being strictly proprietary, so I have some knowledge and understanding of that. And what percentage of the furniture that's in the old courthouse right now do you anticipate repurposing into the new building?
Oh, golly. Oh, good chunk.
At this time, we do not know. We want to repurpose as much as we possibly can. I do want to point out, though, we need to keep the existing courthouse operational until we move into the new courthouse. There will be quite a bit of furniture that's in the existing courthouse that will have to be put into our inventory and reallocated going forward to other projects and or responding to changes within the organization.
Okay. Other questions, Mr. Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few questions. The first is, can you elaborate on the relative merits of the state not allowing us to use the GSA? And is that something that we might at least consider for further legislative inquiry, or is that
I can do some research on that. I honestly cannot answer that question.
Actually, I think Budget would need to respond to that question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Budget would need to respond to that question, I believe.
Well, I was looking at Cindy Green in terms of the legislative platform.
Herbie.
If there is some follow-up advantage, maybe the system has worked itself out, but that
In respect to the GSA contracts?
yeah.
Yeah, I don't honestly know that. I mean, I'm more than happy to do some research on that. I don't know if that was just a federal.
Oh, yeah. Well, our mayor across the street is a bigwig with the regional GSA. Maybe there's a follow-up conversation. Maybe a letter from the chairman on that one. So, changing gears slightly here, I appreciated the life cycle costing discussion and your defining furniture quality, but what I didn't see in here was anything related to comfort. And the reason I say that is having, and I don't have the expertise you do, but one of the questions that I have in previous lives been plagued with is, oh, the furniture looks great, it's stackable, it lives forever, and it's just great, but there's this metal bar that cuts across my legs, and it's just a devil to sit in. So there's no comfort index or utility, friendliness for consumers. I hope that's somewhere in your analysis because I didn't see it here.
Yes, when we look at evaluating a particular piece of furniture to incorporate into our standards, which then We anticipate bringing that forward through the years. We have a huge spreadsheet with all sorts of information that we're evaluating against each chair and/or table. We've done evaluations on our, as an example, our tables down in the meeting and training center. We did an extensive evaluation on what type of tables to purchase and how those would hold up and how they would function with our facility staff to be able to move around and easily store. Associated with the task chairs that we evaluate, and I think, Roberta, you're in the same position, we have a number of task chairs that we've evaluated. I don't know what we're up to now. Six or seven different types of chairs. And what I've always told everybody, our chairs are like shoes. Everybody has a different body. And so we have tall people, we have short people, and that's where that comfort comes into play.
But I would add to that, ergonomics is a really huge issue, and we didn't get into it. That's a really lengthy discussion. But the chairs that we do have as our county standard have features built into them so that they can specifically cater to the variance of each user. And that ergonomic issue is really important to us because we do have a lot of folks who sit in their chair for an 8-hour day. They don't move very much, and that's not actually good for your body to do that. You should always be in motion. And, you know, in concert with that, when you think about workers' comp claims in particular as they relate to ergonomic variables, the average workers' comp claim is $30,000 per person. So when we look at all of our furniture, we're taking that into account because we want to make sure not everything can be all things to all people, but certainly you should have variety in your selection of task chair and make sure that it's comfortable. And we do look for those, you know, that bar hit me in the wrong place.
And that's good. I just did not see that in your
Sure.
that quality component in your comment about everyone has a different pair of shoes or whatever, I think is spot on. Last question on slide 7, you are talking about chairs purchased in '97. So do you maintain or have you maintained an analysis of furniture as we have accumulated it and what % of it is still in use by type and reasons it's been, you know, some things get damaged, and just to get a sense of the history there, that's just a curiosity on my part because with changes in office expectations and work styles and ergometrics, is that
ergonomics?
Ergonomics. Yeah. To say you've got furniture that's 20 or 30 years old, I've had some conversations about some chairs, and they were a lot less than 30 years of age, and they had bottomed out. I'll put it that way. And I'm just wondering, how does that work? Because I'm not sure I want to sit in a chair that's 30 years old, no matter how much utility it may have. It has a different personality, I think, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Other questions? All right. Thank you very much. Excellent, excellent report. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you all for your time.
That concludes our committee of the whole. We are adjourned, and everybody have a nice weekend. And if you can, come out to the Gardner Fair Parade.
Groundbreaking for the library.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The library on Sunday, right?